If you cannot handle strict rules, you may want to think twice before visiting this glittering desert nation. Public drunkenness, holding hands in the wrong place, or even a rude gesture can land a tourist in serious legal trouble here. Yet just minutes away from those strict laws sit rooftop pools, 7-star hotels, and shopping malls the size of small American towns. Nearly 90% of the people living here were born somewhere else, brought in to build a dream they may never fully share in. Skyscrapers climb higher every year, funded by oil wealth and powered by millions of migrant hands working through brutal desert heat. What looks like paradise from a hotel balcony hides a very different reality just a short drive away. Welcome to the United Arab Emirates. Long before the skyscrapers, this land was mostly desert coastline, dotted with small fishing and pearl diving villages. For centuries, families survived on fishing and pearl trading, with none of the wealth seen here today. On December 2nd, 1971, 6 small territories joined together to form one nation. A 7th territory joined shortly after, in 1972, completing the federation as it stands today. That union created 7 separate emirates, each still ruled by its own hereditary leader. Much like American states keep their own governors. The whole country covers about 32,000 square miles, close in size to the state of South Carolina. Its location matters enormously since it borders the Strait of Hormuz, a passage carrying nearly 1/5 of the world's oil shipments. Oil was discovered here in 1958, and exports soon transformed a modest fishing economy into one of the richest nations on earth. Not every emirate struck oil equally, and one city in particular had far smaller reserves than its neighbors. That city chose a different path early on, investing in trade, real estate, and tourism instead of oil. The gamble worked, and within a few decades, that port grew into a global business and tourism hub. In 1971, the entire population of this new nation was under 300,000 people. Today, the population has grown past 11 million, a nearly 40-fold increase in just over 50 years. Air-conditioned malls, glass towers, and man-made islands now rise from land that was empty sand within living memory. Visitors arrive from every continent, drawn by tax-free shopping, luxury hotels, and a skyline rivaling New York and Chicago. Yet no country can build this much, this fast, using only the labor of its own citizens. Emirati nationals make up only a small share of the population, and the rest of the story starts here. Picture standing on the tallest building on the planet, watching the sun set over a skyline built in one generation. That tower rises 2,717 feet into the sky, nearly twice the height of the Empire State Building. Just offshore, an artificial island shaped like a palm tree holds private villas and resorts owned by the wealthy. One shopping mall here covers more floor space than several American football stadiums combined, including an indoor ski slope. Gold vending machines and valet parking for supercars have become normal sights in a city built within one generation. But almost none of this was built by the people who actually call this country home. Citizens make up roughly 1 out of every 9 residents, a smaller share than in almost any other nation. Around 8,700,000 migrant workers currently live here, mostly from India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and the Philippines. Together, foreign residents make up close to 90% of the entire population living in this country today. Many workers arrive already in debt, having paid recruitment fees back home just for the chance to work here. Under a system known as kafala, a worker's visa and legal status are tied directly to a single employer. That arrangement can leave workers with little power to change jobs or leave a situation they find unfair. Summer temperatures here regularly climb above 120 degrees Fahrenheit, hot enough to soften asphalt on the road. Construction crews often work through that heat for hours, building the very towers tourists later admire from air-conditioned rooms. Many live far from the glittering skyline, in labor camps, where several men often share one small room. So within the same city, one street holds 7-star hotels, while another holds crowded worker dormitories nearby. That single contrast, luxury built on the backs of underpaid labor, sits at the very heart of this nation's story. To even get a job offer, many workers pay recruitment agents fees that can equal several months of their expected salary back home. Some borrow that money from relatives or local lenders, arriving already owing debts before earning a single paycheck in this country. Passport confiscation by employers is officially illegal here. Yet human rights groups report it still happens across parts of the construction industry. To address extreme heat, the government enforces a midday work ban each summer, stopping outdoor labor between 12:30 and 3 in the afternoon. That rule runs from mid-June through mid-September, covering the hottest stretch of the year in the entire Gulf region. Even with that break, workers often put in long shifts before dawn and again after sunset just to finish major projects on schedule. A basic laborer's monthly wage here can be a small fraction of what a single night in a luxury hotel room costs nearby. Most of that money does not stay in the country, since workers send large portions of every paycheck back to families overseas. Remittances sent out of this nation rank among the highest in the world, supporting entire households across South Asia and the Philippines. In 2017, the government introduced a wage protection system, requiring employers to pay salaries electronically to prevent unpaid wages. Despite reforms, labor rights organizations still report cases of delayed pay, especially among smaller construction subcontractors during difficult economic years. Workers rarely have the option to unionize or strike, since labor unions are not permitted under the country's current legal system. For many families overseas, a father or brother working here for years is simply the only realistic path toward a better life at home. That sacrifice built the skyline tourist photograph, yet the men making that sacrifice almost never appear in the tourism advertisements themselves. Understanding this side of the story does not erase the nation's achievements, but it does complete a picture that glossy brochures leave out. The next part of the story shows exactly where these workers live and how far that world sits from the glittering hotels nearby. Walk through certain neighborhoods here and you will hear more Hindi, Urdu and Tagalog spoken on the street than Arabic itself. Indian nationals alone make up the single largest group in the country, forming close to 40% of the total population. Alongside them live large communities from Pakistan, Bangladesh, the Philippines and Nepal, each bringing their own food, language and traditions. On the outskirts of the main cities sit entire districts built specifically to house this workforce, far from the tourist areas most visitors see. One such district holds tens of thousands of workers in dormitory-style housing, with several men often sharing a single small room. These labor accommodation zones rarely appear on tourist maps, despite housing a population larger than many American small towns. Inside those districts, small shops sell spices, snacks and phone cards from home, creating pockets of familiar culture inside a foreign land. On Fridays, the one weekly day off for many laborers, these neighborhoods fill with workers sending money home or simply resting together. Cricket matches spring up on any open patch of dirt or pavement, becoming one of the few free pleasures available after a long week. Meanwhile, less than an hour away, gated communities house executives and tourists in villas with private pools and manicured lawns. Emirati citizens themselves often live in yet another world entirely, supported by generous government benefits, free education, and guaranteed public sector jobs. Three distinct populations effectively share the same small country, rarely crossing paths outside of a work shift or a shopping mall. That separation is not accidental, since visas, housing, and even neighborhoods are shaped by nationality and income from the very start. Despite the divide, the country still functions as one of the most religiously and ethnically diverse nations on the planet today. Mosques, Hindu temples, and Christian churches operate within a short drive of each other, something rare across much of the wider region. That diversity gives the nation a texture visitors rarely notice, hidden just beneath the surface of its record-breaking skyline. Some restaurants here serve dishes literally covered in real edible gold, turning a simple burger into a $500 experience. At one dessert shop, scoops of ice cream are dusted with 24-karat gold flakes before being handed to customers. A cappuccino topped with gold leaf can cost more than a week's wage for some of the laborers working nearby. Yet the national dish here is far simpler, a spiced rice and meat dish called machboos, eaten in homes for generations. Camel meat still appears on many traditional menus, alongside camel milk, which locals have consumed for centuries in the desert. One local company even turned camel milk into chocolate bars, now sold in luxury shops across the entire country. In sharp contrast, many labor camps rely on simple canteen meals, often rice, lentils, and small portions of meat or vegetables. Workers frequently cook shared meals themselves after long shifts, recreating comfort food from home using ingredients bought in bulk. Friday gatherings often center around food, with groups pooling money to buy larger meals they could not afford individually. Meanwhile, five-star hotel brunches here can include unlimited seafood, champagne, and desserts, priced well above monthly wages for many workers. Food delivery apps are massively popular in the wealthier districts, often driven by the same migrant workforce building the towers themselves. That means the man delivering a gold-topped dessert may be sending most of his own paycheck home the same week. If this contrast between gold-covered desserts and simple labor camp meals surprises you, leave a one in the comments below. Street food stalls run by South Asian vendors offer a cheaper, more familiar alternative tucked away from the main tourist trips. Spice markets sell saffron, cardamom, and dried fruit, connecting the country's Gulf trading history to its kitchens even today. Food here tells the same story as everything else, one side glittering with excess, the other quietly getting by. Despite the party image seen online, alcohol can only be legally served inside licensed hotels, bars, and specific restaurants. Drinking in public or appearing visibly intoxicated outside those venues can lead to arrest, even for foreign tourists on vacation. Public displays of affection, including kissing or prolonged hand-holding, have led to real fines and even deportation in past cases. Making a rude hand gesture at another driver during traffic can technically count as a criminal offense under local law. Swearing in public, even in a private message sent through social media, has resulted in real legal cases against tourists. Photographing strangers without their permission is illegal here, a rule most visitors never realize until they are stopped by police. Since 2020, unmarried couples are legally allowed to live together, a major reform from decades of stricter rules. Before that reform, unmarried cohabitation could technically result in arrest, though enforcement against tourists was historically inconsistent at best. During the holy month of Ramadan, eating or drinking in public during daylight hours is restricted out of respect for those fasting. Visitors who break minor cultural rules often receive only a warning, but repeat or serious violations can bring real fines. Despite strict laws, the country markets itself heavily toward Western tourists, creating a strange gap between image and legal reality. Many tourists never encounter these laws firsthand, since major hotels and resorts operate almost like separate legal bubbles from the rest of the country. That gap between glittering advertisements and strict local law is part of what makes this country so difficult to fully understand. One wrong photo or one rude gesture behind the wheel can turn a dream vacation into a very real legal problem. Understanding these rules before visiting is not just polite, it can genuinely protect a traveler from serious consequences. Rules this strict rarely make it into glossy tourism brochures, yet they shape daily life here just as much as any skyscraper. Islam is the official religion here, and its rhythm shapes daily life far more than most visitors first expect. 5 times a day, the call to prayer echoes from mosque loudspeakers across every city, even inside busy shopping malls. Businesses often pause briefly during prayer times, with some shops closing their doors for a short while out of respect. One mosque in the capital can hold more than 41,000 worshippers at once, among the largest in the world. That mosque features 82 marble domes and one of the largest hand-knotted carpets ever produced on earth. Non-Muslim visitors are welcome to tour many major mosques, provided they follow modest dress codes out of respect. Despite strict Islamic law shaping the legal system, the country also allows churches, temples, and other places of worship to operate. One area in the capital even houses a Hindu temple, a Sikh Gurdwara, and a Catholic church within walking distance of each other. During Ramadan, the entire rhythm of daily life shifts, with restaurants closing during daylight hours and evenings filled with communal meals. After sunset each night during that month, communities gather for iftar, the meal breaking the day's fast together. Migrant workers of different faiths often adapt their own religious practices, quietly, worshipping privately since public expression outside Islam is limited. That quiet coexistence, strict at the top, yet diverse underneath, mirrors the same layered contrast found throughout this entire country. Religious tolerance here exists within very specific boundaries, allowed but carefully managed rather than treated as fully equal. For many migrant workers, Faith becomes one of the few constants they carry with them from home into this foreign land. Whether at a grand mosque or a small rented prayer room, spirituality remains a quiet backbone beneath the glittering skyline. Long before glass towers, one small fort built in 1787 stood as the seat of local rulers for generations. That fort still stands today, now transformed into a museum telling the story of the nation before oil changed everything. In the 1950s, this entire region had barely any paved roads, running water, or electricity outside a few small towns. Oil exports began in the early 1960s, and within 2 decades, the skyline had already started climbing toward the clouds. By 1979, the country's tallest building stood at just over 300 feet, modest compared to today's record breakers. Just over 3 decades later, that record shattered completely with the opening of the world's tallest building in 2010. A man-made archipelago, shaped like a world map, now sits offshore. One of the most ambitious construction projects ever attempted. Building that archipelago required moving enough sand and rock to circle the globe more than 3 times over. The country's busiest airport now ranks among the top 3 busiest in the world for international passenger traffic. That airport processes more international travelers each year than the entire population of several mid-sized American states combined. A driverless metro system, opened in 2009, remains the longest fully automated rail network on the planet. None of this existed within the lifetime of the country's oldest living citizens, a transformation almost unmatched in modern history. That speed of change came at a cost, since much of it relied on labor imported from far poorer nations nearby. Each landmark here tells 2 stories at once, one of national ambition and another of the workers who built it. Standing among these structures today, it becomes clear how quickly a nation can reinvent itself when wealth and ambition align. Every year, migrant workers here send home a combined total worth tens of billions of dollars to families across Asia. India alone receives more money sent home from workers in this country than from almost any other nation on earth. For some Indian states, remittances from here fund entire local economies, paying for homes, weddings, and children's education back home. A single construction worker might spend 3, 5, or even 10 years away from his family just to keep that money flowing. Video calls have become a lifeline, letting fathers watch children grow up through a phone screen instead of in person. Meanwhile, this country's own economy has shifted dramatically, moving away from oil and toward finance, trade, and tourism revenue. Oil now makes up a much smaller share of the national economy than it did just a few decades ago. Real estate alone contributes a massive share of the nation's income, built largely on foreign investment and foreign labor combined. Citizens themselves rarely work construction jobs, since government benefits and public sector positions remain far more common career paths for them. That means the country's entire visible wealth depends almost completely on workers who will likely never become citizens themselves. Very few migrant workers, no matter how many years they contribute, ever gain a realistic path toward permanent citizenship here. After decades of labor, many workers eventually return home for good, often with little more than savings and memories. Their children may never see the towers their fathers helped build, despite those towers standing for generations to come. This economic relationship benefits both sides in different ways. Yet, the balance of power remains sharply uneven throughout. Wealth flows upward and outward at the same time, a paradox as strange as any skyline seen from a hotel window. For wealthy residents, daily life here can look like something out of a movie set in the near future. Supercars line Valet stands outside malls, with Lamborghinis and Ferraris treated almost as casually as sedans back in America. One hotel offers a room with its own private pool, butler service, and views stretching across the entire coastline. Indoor skiing exists here too, with real snow inside a mall, despite outdoor temperatures regularly climbing past 100 degrees. Beach clubs charge day passes, costing more than some workers earn in a full week nearby. Yet for budget travelers, this country can still be affordable, especially by using public transit instead of taxis everywhere. The metro system costs just a few dollars a day, offering air-conditioned relief from the desert heat outside. Public beaches remain completely free, letting tourists enjoy the same coastline as 5-star resorts without the steep price tag. Old town markets known as souks sell spices, textiles and gold at prices far lower than luxury mall boutiques nearby. A simple curry from a small South Asian restaurant can cost less than a coffee at a 5-star hotel lobby. If you would consider visiting for the luxury but staying on a budget like this, drop a 2 in the comments. Tourism here has grown into a massive industry, drawing visitors from Europe, Asia, and increasingly the United States each year. That growth means both experiences exist side by side, the influencers' rooftop pool and the backpackers' public beach towel. For many American travelers, the appeal lies in getting a 5-star feeling without the fully 5-star price tag. Whether visiting for luxury or on a budget, no traveler here fully escapes the contrast defining this entire country. Long before shopping malls, camel racing stood as one of the most respected sports across this entire desert region. Today, camels race along tracks, while robot jockeys, controlled remotely by trainers in nearby cars, replace the child riders once used. That change followed international pressure over child labor in the sport, leading to major reform within the past 2 decades. Falconry remains another deeply respected tradition, with trained falcons sometimes valued at tens of thousands of dollars each. Falcons even carry their own passports here, a legal requirement that reflects just how seriously the tradition is protected. Traditional dhow boats, once used for pearl diving and fishing, now carry tourists on sunset cruises along the modern coastline. Emirati weddings can last several days, blending centuries-old customs with modern celebrations held inside 5-star hotel ballrooms. Hand-woven textiles, silver jewelry, and traditional dance performances still appear at cultural festivals held throughout the year. Younger Emirati citizens often blend both worlds, wearing traditional dress while studying abroad or working in modern global industries. Heritage villages built within major cities let both tourists and locals experience pre-oil daily life up close. These recreated villages feature traditional tents, pottery making, and craftsmen demonstrating skills nearly lost to modern city life. Migrant workers rarely take part in these cultural spaces, since most heritage tourism markets itself toward visitors and citizens instead. That absence quietly reflects the same divide seen throughout the rest of this country's daily life. Still, traditional culture here has not disappeared. It has simply been repackaged for a global audience arriving by the millions. Beneath the skyscrapers, older customs continue quietly, waiting to be noticed by anyone willing to look past the skyline. Government leaders have laid out an official plan called Vision 2031, aiming to double the economy within a decade. That plan focuses heavily on artificial intelligence, renewable energy, and advanced manufacturing, moving further away from oil dependence entirely. A massive solar park outside the capital already ranks among the largest single-site solar projects anywhere on the planet. By 2050, officials aim to generate half of the nation's entire energy supply from clean sources instead of fossil fuels. New labor reforms introduced in recent years allow workers to change employers more easily than under the older kafala system. A minimum wage structure and stronger contract protections are also being gradually introduced across several major industries. Critics argue enforcement still lags behind the new laws, but the direction of reform marks a real shift regardless. Long-term residency programs, including a 10-year golden visa, now offer skilled workers a rare path toward permanent stability here. That program remains largely limited to investors and highly skilled professionals, leaving most laborers outside its reach entirely. Space exploration has even entered the national vision, with a Mars mission successfully reaching orbit back in 2021. That mission made this the 5th nation in history to successfully reach the Red Planet with a working spacecraft. Officials frequently describe their goal as building a post-oil economy, fully powered by knowledge, technology, and global trade. Whether that future includes better conditions for the workers who built its skyline remains an open and unresolved question. For now, ambition and inequality continue rising together, each new tower a symbol of both progress and unfinished promises. The next chapter of this country's story is still being written, quite literally, one skyscraper at a time. We started this journey standing beneath the tallest building on Earth, wondering how a desert nation built something this extraordinary. The answer, as we now understand, was never just oil money or bold ambition alone driving this transformation forward. It was millions of migrant hands, working through brutal heat, far from their own families, that built this glittering skyline. Luxury and labor exist here, side by side, close enough to touch, yet worlds apart in almost every other way. Strict laws sit beside record-breaking freedoms. Ancient traditions sit beside artificial islands. And citizens sit beside a foreign majority. That is the real paradox behind the postcard image most people see scrolling through vacation photos online. So here is our question for you. Would you rather visit this country to experience its luxury or to understand its workers? Let us know your honest answer down in the comments below. We genuinely want to hear your perspective on this. If this video opened your eyes to the hidden side of this glittering nation, hit subscribe for more honest deep dives like this one. We break down the real stories behind the world's most photographed destinations, the parts the postcards never show you. Next time, we are heading to a country where the postcard image hides something even stranger beneath the surface. Stick around, because the next paradox we uncover might completely change how you see that country too.